So we are starting another rendition of Catechism after taking a break this summer. I have a syllabus to hand out. Ben is stapling that right now so that we can walk through that. But the first thing that I want to talk about is this other handout. Does everybody have this handout? Some of you have heard this before because this is basically how I start off every section of Catechism. For those who are inquiring into the church, the path into the Orthodox Church, some of you I've met, some of you I've talked to, some of you I've just had like an email or two and I haven't had a chance yet to sit down and talk to. So the entrance into the Orthodox Church, as it has been historically, has always been something that was a process. There's one author that talks about catechesis as a kind of therapy of conversion, because all of us, when we make big decisions like, sorry, I see that the battery's undone here. Maybe you grew up in a church and now you're looking at Orthodoxy and you're thinking about changing where you go to church, or you've seen a bunch of stuff online about Orthodoxy, and so you're curious now. Or somebody else drug you here, and you're trying to figure out why they drug you here. So there's a lot of ways in which the process is complicated. You're contemplating changing your allegiances. You're contemplating of expanding maybe what you believe or what you think is a part of the life of a Christian. Some of you may be interested in Christianity and Orthodoxy is just what the algorithm offered up to you because the algorithm does all sorts of things now, and there's people who walk into Orthodox churches now because of YouTube algorithms, right? You're watching something else and you're like, oh, that's a funny looking guy with a hat, and then 10 videos later, right? So the whole process, the church has not dealt with necessarily the YouTube algorithm before, but has helped people along into entering into the church where some historically were coming from nothing, right? You think 4th century, you're talking about paganism, right? Your parents are over there if you're looking for your parents. This way, they're inside the church. They're over here in the corner. Before the tears begin, they're lost, right? That's kind of like catechumens, right? No, it's okay. Come on in. You're welcome over here. The reality of the church has always realized that it takes people time to process stuff. And that catechesis itself is in some ways something that you never stop doing, because the core of what historically catechesis is about was, yes, it's about information, right? We're going to talk about ideas. We're going to talk about scripture. We're going to talk about the doctrine of the Trinity. We're going to have a textbook, roughly speaking. I have a syllabus, right? But this is not a classroom, even though I'm trying to be organized. I'm trying to be organized for clarity's sake and so that you understand what expectations are, what's out there for you to understand. There's a bibliography. We'll go through the syllabus like this is a regular classroom. But the whole point of catechesis and becoming a catechumen and then the life of a catechumen is one who is converting to Christ and learning the practices and what it means to be a Christian, as the Orthodox Church understands what a Christian is. So the main thrust is, yes, there's information, but I would say right alongside the information is the transformation of your life. Or at least maybe I should put it like this. The beginning of the transformation of your life. Because the life of following Christ, some people have the road to Emmaus moment, like Paul, right? Where Christ appears to them and they are struck, right? And then they're trying to figure out what it all means, and then, there's other of us who kind of just grew up around Christianity, and it was kind of a thing. We did it. Our parents made us do it. We showed up, maybe in high school, college, we were just like, this isn't for me. And so this then is a different reality of coming into faith as you get older and wiser and more mature, and you want to take on a life of faith. The Orthodox Church has many tools and practices that are embedded in our life that we are inviting you to join us in. It doesn't mean all of us are, glowing with the light of Christ. It means we're all a bunch of pretty pathetic sinners who are also stumbling along the path to try to follow Christ. And that the church is there to help us and give us tools to help transform us. It is, as I like to say to a lot of folks, we are not in a sprint, right? The church and the life in the church is not a sprint, where it's like 50-meter dash, and you better do it in the time, I've got the timer, and then we're going to keep running it and see how fast. This is a marathon. This is, you're going to have a slower pace. Maybe sometimes you decide you're going to walk. Maybe sometimes you want to just give up because you're like, why did I sign up for a marathon in the first place, right? So catechesis is a therapy of conversion because you're going to learn things, but you're also, by God's grace, hopefully begin new practices in your life. And I would encourage you, and that's what I'm going to be focused on, is encouraging you to pick up the traditions and practices of the church. That is also why catechesis and being a catechumen can vary in length between people. Some people, they can be a catechumen. I've had people in the past be catechumen for 1, 2, 3 years even, because they just weren't ready. Not because you're not ready, you haven't figured it out, you're not, they themselves, and I came to agree with them, they weren't ready. Either their family situation, or they were really stuck on, praying to the Theotokos, to Mary, or they couldn't really grapple with leaving their church. It is okay for things to take time, and that God is a good and gracious God, a merciful God. There are times where people have taken a little bit while because I've suggested, hey, let's take a little bit longer. I know you're really interested in that girl, and that's why you're here, so let's just make sure that you really know what you're doing before you commit, okay? Does anyone have any questions, as I just kind of did a rambling intro right there? Now that everybody has the syllabus, that was part of what the rambling intro is about, and it's also kind of what is in the syllabus. Let's talk about the syllabus, then we'll talk about this 12 things to do as a part of your role of your life. Okay, as you can see, I have highlighted the very beginning so that up front, becoming and being a catechumen in the Orthodox Church is something that requires something of you. If you would like to become an Orthodox Christian, there are some that will make the bar of entry basically down here, and you just kind of wander into the church and slip into the baptistry, and then you're in. I'm not trying to make things super difficult, but I'm trying to, as with any new patterns of your life, it takes time. This is also something that has been substantiated by, I don't know what is neuroscience the right way to talk about it, right? If you've read books I think it's Atomic Habits or things like this, it takes an actual period of time for you to actually get a new habit. How many times do we think, oh, that's a great idea, I should change my life, and I should do that thing, like New Year's resolutions every single year, and then by January 6th, you have completely forgot what you even said on January 1st? Anybody else? Because, yeah, okay. So the church gives us things for us to dwell in for a while too, so that we can pick up those habits. So what are some of the habits and the things that are required as a catechumen? The first is regular attendance at the divine services. I especially underline Vespers and divine liturgies, but I also encourage you to come to other services as you are able. Baptisms, weddings, funerals, etc. Panahidas, which are our memorial services, these are part and parcel of the life of the church. It is something to behold and experience all of the various ways in which the church attends to us throughout our lives. whether they be through baptisms, weddings, funerals, but Vespers especially is something that is assumed in the life of the church that is to be attended by the faithful. The reality of modern life makes that a little bit harder, but Vespers is the preparatory, it is the beginning of the commemoration or the service is. So for example, last night in the hymnody, we were singing about the four feasts, the Nativity of Theotokos, and we're singing about the Martyr Sozon, and it is for us the beginning of the day. It begins in the evening. It is a good time, is why I hear confessions regularly on Saturday evening to prepare for Sunday morning, and it's good generally on Saturday evenings to start that process of preparing yourself for Sunday morning, as opposed to waking up at 8:15 with the buzzer going off for the 15th time, rolling out of bed, and then running to your car, playing the loudest music that you can to wake you up, and screeching down to the church to get there at 9:40, right? I encourage you to start good habits, because if you start good habits, they should, even if you veer off, you can renew them because you're more used to them and you have that expectation in your head. If you've never gone to church regularly, this can be challenging, right? If you're used to going to church regularly, there'll be other things that Orthodoxy will challenge you on, so don't worry. Just the length of our services, that'll probably challenge most of you. Okay? So, the other required element, attend catechesis. Kind of a no-brainer. If you're a catechumen and you want to join yourself to the Orthodox Church, you need to come to the classes. Not everybody can come to every single class. I understand that. Life happens, family happens, somebody dies, your job throws you a curveball. Life happens. That's part of the reason why these are recorded. But if you miss half of the classes, I'm going to have some reticence at the end of it all to bring you into the church. We might do another round, or we might wait a little bit longer and just communicate and see where you're at. Part of the reason you might be like, wow, this requires a lot. All right, you're getting married, right? Like you're making a massive decision in joining a church. This isn't like you're trading out and you're going to go from one brand, like you really like McDonald's and now you like swear by Wendy's or something, right? Like, or whatever. That was a bad analogy. You know what I mean, right? Your Starbucks or Dunkin' or something. This is not that level. Both of those are bad, so it doesn't, right? You have to put a lot of milk and sugar in there to hide all this stuff. So the reality of the church, this is a serious thing, and if you don't take it seriously, it is hard for me to take your intention seriously, and for your sake and my sake, then we might just add more time, right? Because this is also a thing that you're going to get in a relationship with. Maybe some of you have never had a relationship with a priest, that you'll have somebody who hears your confessions, right? Who's going to know things about you that nobody else knows about you, and that by pain of I will lose my entire priesthood if I was to blurt a single thing about anything that you say to me in confession, right? So it's serious. But there is a relationship that you're going to have with the priest. Somebody who's going to say yes to things and somebody who's going to say no to certain things, right? Because that is what a pastor, a priest does. So, developing a personal rule of life, this is something that you develop with me. I generally give an example, a rule of prayer and fasting, which will be discussed and blessed by me. That means coming to understand how prayer is going to work in your life. I am not somebody who's going to, who has an Orthodox prayer book? Let's just start there. Does anyone have an Orthodox prayer book? Okay. Have any of you been doing the morning prayers from the prayer book? Does it feel ever long? Sometimes. Sometimes, yeah. The evening prayers, it depends. It depends on where you're placed in life. Like Isaiah, it makes sense. They might not feel very long to you. You're not married with kids. Once you get married with kids, they feel really long because the 3-year-old's diaper is full and he's running around, spreading his love around the house, and you're trying to do your prayers, right? Like the reality. So there are forms of rules of prayers, because a rule, does everyone know what I mean by a rule of prayer? I try very hard to not just use technical lingo that I know, but I don't know if you know. So a rule, think of like a cannon, and I don't mean cannons that shoot things, but like some kind of way of measuring something, right? You say, I judge this by this rule. So a rule of prayer is some kind of pattern of prayer. We had somebody donate to the church, and this is something I'm going to give to catechumens. This is, if you have already prayers, sorry, we're being recorded, so I'm going to make sure. This St. Tikhon's Press has published these, which is basically taking the prayer book that you can get from St. Tikhon's and then giving a shorter version. It's called an introductory collection. I suggest that you start your morning and evening prayers with what is laid out here. I have in the past created my own version of this, and then when they did this and I looked at it and saw that was very similar to what I was already doing, I said, great, this looks a lot nicer than a piece of paper printed out with a staple in it, right? This can go in your icon corner. It can begin to be with you as you pray, right? So you're welcome to one of these. They're also online. I think they're like $6, $5, $6, $7. They're pretty cheap, and they should be readily available. Please, per family, let's just take one because, so we can all share the wealth, right? When you're coming into the church, you're also going to start embracing the fast of the church, and this is something that we'll talk about either in a meeting or I will talk about it through catechesis. The next thing I have as required is attend the principles set out in Father Thomas Hopko's. This isn't really his as much as Father Justin Patterson, who's another priest in the OCA, took what Father Thomas Hopko, who has since gone on to his reward, he put out there what's called 55 maxims of the Orthodox Christian life. He took those 55 maxims and he condensed them into this. We'll be going over this in a minute, but this is a good beginning for a rule of life of how to try to measure or figure out what you need to be focused on and aiming towards as an Orthodox Christian and learning about what becoming an Orthodox Christian. The next is, as important as the others, is to getting to know parishioners of St. Peter and St. Paul. That requires you to come to coffee hour. And I'm probably going to say this from the Amvon a few more times. Amvon is basically right here, and the Orthodox Church, as opposed to a pulpit, because we don't typically have pulpits in our churches. That it's very easy for us to get set, find a place downstairs at coffee hour and kind of like sit there. I encourage you, go sit at some other tables. Mix it up a little bit. Try to meet other people, other ages. This parish has been at this place, this particular location, since the late 90s, but this parish began in the 1930s, and the roots of the people who started this parish go back for generations back in the Carpathian mountain range, but it's also made up of other people whose people hail from Serbia to Russia to Greece to Lebanon, etc. Right? So there are those who've grown up Orthodox, and they may not be able to answer every single technical detail that you may have because of some video that you watched online about the differences between the Latin fathers on the Filioque and the Greek fathers about the fine-tuned details about the Holy Spirit. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, God bless you, it's fine. You don't have to know all these fine details, okay? Those are things that you can talk to me about, but there are also certain things that I may say, well, I know somebody who could answer that for you, but I noticed that you're here half the time, right? Let's get our priorities straight, as opposed to diving off into the internet. So getting to know people here at the parish, because as a catechumen and becoming a part of the life of Orthodox Christians is not just a download of information, but it is participating in a way of life, right? So that means getting to know people. We whoever you are who's interested in becoming Orthodox, need to meet with me at least 2 times. 2 times is like, I kind of consider that a minimum. It's okay if it's 2 times. In fact, I'd say it's perfectly fine if it's 2 times. But we at least need to meet 2 times. At the beginning, to kind of gauge where things are, I would suggest probably in the middle at some point would probably be a good time. And then towards the end, we have to meet because we need to discuss concluding matters in regards to who your patron saint is going to be, who your sponsor is, those kind of things. So classes will always be at noon. We'll go for an hour. So I will also, as I'm saying, make every attempt to begin. Yes, we will make every attempt to begin promptly at 12. I promise we will. If it's not 12, it'll be 12:03, okay? Does anyone have any questions about any of that? Okay. The next thing, I guess I skipped over, but you can see the reception. If you go down a little bit on the page, reception into the church, and then patron saint, and then sponsor, which is on the next page. The reception into the church, you being received into the Orthodox Church, is something that is ultimately at my discretion of when you are ready to enter the church. By me saying that, I'm not saying that I am like some ogre of a person who wants to, it's just to make sure that we're on the same page, that you understand what you're doing, that you're ready to make the commitment. Just like if you're going to get married and your dad sat you down and be like, are you sure that this is the person you want to marry? Are you sure? Are you counting the costs of what you're doing? And that then we can agree upon a time. I usually do bring people into the church in like waves or shifts. I don't typically do like a baptism here and a baptism there and a chrismation here. That's why some of you have been a catechumen. You may have been a catechumen even for like a few months at this point. We'll see about doing some receptions around Christmas time. But generally, those who are beginning the process now or very recently have been made catechumens, we're going to receive you at Lazarus Saturday, which is the end of Lent in the spring. So there are some of you who have been around and have already like caught, I think, some of the last of the classes of the last catechism section. So we'll sit down and we'll discuss when we get closer to Christmas. Patron saint. Everyone, I suggest now start reading the lives of the saints and getting familiar with Orthodoxy as you read. That when you are received into the church, you're received with a patron, with someone who has gone on before and has been enrolled as saints of the church. There are many saints. There's many names. If your name is Matthew, I am probably not going to bless you to become nectarios when you become Orthodox, or when you're baptized, or when you're chrismated, okay? Matthew is a glorious, normal Christian name. Nectarios is a normal Christian name too. It's just, if your mom is Cindy and your dad is Bob, I'm probably not going to suggest you take on the name Nectarios, okay? I love Nectarios. No problems with Nectarios. It's just, I've been around the block enough to know when people come into the church, you get enamored with different saints, and then you want to take on the name of a saint, and now you're like, I really love the letters of Barsanuphios, and I want to be Barsanuphios. And I would say, no, you're not. You're not going to be Barsanuphios. You are David, right? So there are I have made exceptions here and there to these things because of the reality of just situations. You know, I knew somebody, he's actually a monk now, named Nectarios, who when he was coming into the church, he had some pretty fantastic experiences with Nectarios. So I wasn't the priest then. We were in OCF, which is like the college group for Orthodox, and he was received at Nectarios, and now he's a higher monk. No, just a monk. Nectarios now, okay? So, such is life. That's fine. That's good. His name before was nothing like that. Actually, he's from Illinois. He had no Greek background, nothing, okay? So, that is okay. You may be wondering, he's spending a lot of time talking about this. If you take a name like Nectarios, eventually you will start calling yourself David again. So I'm just saving you a few years of you going back and forth and everybody being confused about your name. Just stick with the name. It's okay. God gave it to you. Your parents gave it to you. It is fine. Some of you will have names that are a little bit less traditional, shall we say. Okay? Sky. Autumn. Autumn's a pretty name. These are nice names. There's just that's not a Christian name. So then your middle name is, Elizabeth. Well, there you go. Your middle name is Elizabeth. You're Elizabeth now, right? Like, there's many Elizabeths. I think you understand what I'm saying. If a saint appears to you in your dreams and is talking to you, we need to sit down and talk anyways if that's what's happening. But, maybe some exception can be made. But generally, if you have a good, solid Christian name, let's stick with your Christian name. Okay? I'm going to start that from the start so that you know and don't come to me later with Spiridon or something. Okay? Lovely saint. You just don't need to be Spiridon in the southwest burbs of Chicago. Okay? There is even a Saint Spiridon in one of the Paloses. I can't remember which Palos it is, right? There's a church. Glorious saint. You're not Spiridon, okay? All right, anyways, I'm done. Sponsor. You need to find a godparent, a sponsor. You are an adult, and I realize that. And godparents are very helpful. They are there to encourage you, to pray for you. They don't have to become like your surrogate mom or dad. They don't have to become like your best friend ever. But they're there who's somebody who's a little bit farther ahead on the road in the Christian faith or in the Orthodox faith, and they're there to help. But they're not a surrogate parent or something like that, right? Because I think sometimes people get confused about what this means. Historically, the church, the catechesis and catechumens, this was somebody who vouched for you, who said, like, this person is not, a vagrant and, a vagrant's not really the right word I want to use. A swindler, or they used to do these things and now they don't, right? So that's what a sponsor can be. Somebody who's vouching for you and somebody who can pray for you, okay? All right. We'll go through the syllabus a little bit. All right, if you see the syllabus here, yeah.
Just a question about the sponsor?
Sponsor.
Does it have to be someone from within the church, this parish, or can it be someone?
It does not have to be somebody from this parish. It can be somebody from another, or they have to be an Orthodox Christian. And they need to be the same gender that you are. I'm using the right word, right? All of these words have been like gender, sex, whatever. If you're a male, it needs to be a male. It's a female, it needs to be a female, okay? Can I borrow, since you have, instead of me opening the box, because I just didn't have time. I didn't talk about, this is the book that we're going to be using. I have a few extra copies if anybody, because this is a $30 book, right? So if you, let's just say, if $30 is going to push you a little bit, we have some to be able to take out, just to ask that you bring them back. But we're starting like a little lending library. And even if it's just, it wouldn't push you, but like you want to read it and then maybe you would, in reading it, like think of it like a library, right? You're going to bring it back, but maybe you don't want to purchase it right away. This, I have not used this before for catechesis, so going through this, I'm sure will be, I know it will be good because I know others who use this. There'll be certain things in it that I'll have to clarify because I just know that's always how whatever is being used. But this is the basic text. In the past, I've used a source that is online and printed if you want. This syllabus it has the name. It also has the link if you go on the website. You can buy directly from the publisher. You can buy it from Amazon, however, whatever you think. So if you'll look, this syllabus, God willing, is the syllabus that we're going to be following. And what I mean by that is every once in a while I put a Sunday on there that was not a good idea because that weekend just becomes crazy. And you'll notice we go from December 14th to January 4th. There's a reason for that. It's a little holiday we like to call Christmas, and everyone's lives get really crazy around that time. So you can notice we're not doing every single Sunday, and it bounces around a little bit. Part of that is also so that I'm available to the rest of the parish, because if you notice the time frame that we're starting this at 12, it doesn't give me a whole lot of time, and coffee hour could be an important time for me to visit with members of the church. So just notice this. If you are not, as I'm thinking about this, if you've not signed up for the email, the newsletter from the church, sign up for the newsletter. That's where all the info for the church is sent out. You can find on the homepage the syllabus. It's under an education tab instead of just, it used to say catechism, but I changed it to education. You can also find there, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll just get on a different track. So, you can see, the calendar, that's what I was thinking of. See, I just switched over, now I remember. The calendar, the Google Calendar, sync it, find it on the website. I try to keep it as updated as possible. If it's on the Google Calendar and it's wrong in the bulletin, the Google Calendar is probably right and the bulletin is wrong. Like today I said there's Vespers at 2 next week. That's not true. That's Sunday. That's not true at all. Right? Okay. As you can see, we're going to be working through basically chapters of this book at a time. Please do read. In the past, I'm not going to ask questions like you are a senior in high school or a freshman in college, and like we have quizzes that make sure that you understand the basic vocabulary. I'm going to treat you like adults. At least I hope that you can be treated like adults, right? That's where we're at, that you read. If you don't read, I mean, you're hurting yourself. I don't know why you wouldn't read. I also try to make this, 26 pages. I'm sure you doom scroll enough in a week to account for 26 pages of a book, right? It might be a little complicated. If it's complicated reading for you, there's something that you stumble across and you're like, I don't understand that. That's what class is for. We can talk about it, because I'll have read it too, right? And then we'll talk about it. And very often, I might even lecture, and I'm assuming that you've read the text, and I'm going to take my own vantage point or the way that I want to talk about that topic, and I'm going to just talk. You've been here, those of you who've been for the class, you know that I can talk. So there's no problem with me figuring out how to talk. It's just, if you don't read the basics, there's going to be times you maybe get lost about what I'm talking about. Okay? Especially for some of you, let me just ask this. How many of you have who? Those who have been here for a while, you don't have to raise your hand because I already know where you're coming from, but who of you come from a Christian background already? Yes? Who comes from not Christian background? So not Christian background, not Christian background. Okay. Who came from another religion? Who came from just kind of secular materialistic nothingness? AKA America. Okay. Paganism? Anything like that? Wicca? Sorta? Yeah. Alright. So people come from a lot of different places, and so sometimes our conversations have to cover a lot of different things. Don't ever feel dumb because you feel like you have a dumb question. Even if it is a dumb question, because there are actually dumb questions. I'm not going to act like it's a dumb question, I'm just going to answer it, okay? Please ask questions. Because I bet money. Can I say bet money? I guarantee that whatever question you have, there's probably 3 other people in here who have the same question. They just either don't know that they have that question, or they just haven't articulated it yet. Okay? So just ask. So as you can see, as you go through, I've kept parts of what I used to assign from Hopco that is all online. Where the links are, they link to online reading. And if you want to borrow those books, you can. And this will go all the way up until Lent, and on the back there is a bibliography. I would say an annotated bibliography, which kind of tells you what I think about the different books and what's out there. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm not going to take attendance, right? And I'm also somebody, if you need help or if you need something, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I cannot read your mind. I do not know what is going on with you. Because I pray does not mean that I can read and know all the intentions of your heart and desires and when you're in despair or whatever. If you need something, let me know, okay? Because it is very easy, and I've had this experience enough. I don't know if it's something about modern Americans, but we have a tendency, we get interested in something, and then something happens, or we struggle with something, and then we ghost, right? We're done, we're out. We can't do it, and we step away. Before you do something like that, reach out and talk to me. It might be something that you just misunderstood something. I had somebody who, after they were off and on and coming, and because I started off with this, and you'll see why in a minute, and we had a meeting, and he was just like, I cannot, like, you expect us to be perfect. I was like, no. That is not what the point of this is. It's not that I expect you to be perfect, and if you don't become perfect in 6 to 9 months, well, you can't join us, right? That's not how this works. That's not what the point is. But if you don't try, if you don't show up, if you don't exert yourself in some way towards God in prayer and desire for him, even if you're fumbling and falling down and messing up every single day, you can join the club with the rest of us, because that's what church is, right? So it's okay that you are not perfect. I am not perfect. That's also a secret, right? Okay. I feel like I have to always say that because I have this experience over and over again. So let's go ahead and move on, if we have no questions about the syllabus, for those seeking truth. So coming into the Orthodox Church, many of us have had different paths into the church, and maybe you've asked some of these questions that starts at the top of this document. How can I know God as God really is? How can I actually come to know him? How can I know that Christ is the way, the truth, and life of God and humanity, the light of the world? And then, okay, if I believe that he is the way, the truth, and life, how can I know the Orthodox Church as the household of God and the pillar and the bulwark of the truth, God's kingdom on earth? If you want to find answers for yourself to these questions, Orthodox saints and spiritual teachers would ask you to do the following things as faithfully and honestly as you can, and to see for yourself, I don't know, for yourself, what happens. Okay. 1, be ready to do whatever it takes to know. Humbly and courageously do what you are told without questioning it. Lay aside your will. Vow to follow what you come to know, whatever the cost. In following Christ, we are told by Christ to pick up our cross and follow him. Or to some of the apostles, he tells them, lay aside those nets, put away everything in the middle of whatever you're doing, and follow me. So if you want to follow Christ and come to know the truth, you have to be ready to sacrifice for it, to actually come to know. We know this is true about anything else in our life that we actually care anything about. Right? You want to come to know somebody else, and you want to love somebody else, you need to prepare yourself to die, to sacrifice, to love them, to be patient with them, to forgive them. They may seem like the honeymoon at the beginning, but eventually the honeymoon phase is over, right? And then you have to actually deal with them as the broken person that they are, right? So if you want to come to know God and Christ, then you need to begin the process of putting aside yourself and obeying him and entering into the life of the church. Number 2, pray for enlightenment, even if yours is to whom it may concern, if you haven't fully wrapped your mind around God. Pray something like this: God, reveal yourself to me as you really are, and as you pray, do not look for anything. Let whatever happens, happen. Now, in entering into the church, if you are doing this by just reading stuff or watching stuff and not praying, you have it completely backwards. I almost said backwards. Sorry, I'm from the South. Backwards, right? You need to be, I would rather you not consume any Orthodox content. All you did was pray, come to services, and just read a gospel. And that would be, you would find salvation if you actually just did those things and applied yourself to follow what Christ says. You will find salvation. What do you think he means by, as you pray, do not look for anything, let whatever happens, happen? Anyone know what that means?
I feel like a lot of times when we pray, we ask God for something, but in reality,
Is there something wrong about that?
no, but we should put more faith into His plan, His all knowing, His.
We pray with more faith, yes. Jose, I think you raised your hand.
I forgot what it was.
Okay, that's okay. I do that all the time. You know, you've been to enough of these. I would submit very often. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like you would start looking for a sign or something symbolizing.
You want pyrotechnics, right? Not you, but like sometimes in prayer, people like, if you're really real, you're gonna make that tree limb fall. You know, like you're gonna, or like when you're really in it and you're like, God, you start making all these deals with him and stuff, right? Like you're instrumentalizing God. You are using God. That's not who God is. God does not function as, Santa Claus or the divine 911 operator who's going to send help, right? Like that's not who God is. He is he is not Santa Claus, but he is the giver of gifts. He is the one who intervenes. He is the one who saves, but you cannot treat him like that, right? He's not a service to call upon or an app to order something on. He is God. And you want, and the point of prayer is a relationship with God. And this is why when we talk about prayers for healing for people, we would love if God can heal and God can heal, but we also accept at the same time in the prayer that his will be done. And sometimes that means that the person is just going to suffer. That doesn't mean he doesn't love them. It doesn't mean he doesn't care for them, but he's still God and he's still with them. But we're all going to die and we're all going to suffer. Sometimes he releases those things and sometimes he doesn't. And we have to see it as a blessing. That's the cross. Number 3, while praying this way, read through the New Testament very slowly at least 3 times. Take several months to do this. Do not be bothered about what you do not understand, but try to put into practice what you do not understand. No, sorry, what you do understand. You're all putting into practice what you don't understand. We're all doing that. What I have suggested to people, because this is a pretty tall order, read the entire New Testament 3 times the next few months. What I have suggested is choose a gospel and just read that gospel. And even if you do it slowly once the next few months, read one gospel all the way through. Every part you don't understand, don't get stuck, don't get on Google, don't ask ChatGPT, just be okay with that you don't understand something and keep moving. Very often, it requires you to read something 3 or 4 or 5 times, or to have some more experience under your belt, or you need to read another gospel for you to actually be able to understand what is being said. But you can generally get something out of every part of the gospel. I would not say that out of the book of Revelation. That requires a lot more, but I don't suggest that you start there. And of the Gospels, if you're going to start with the Gospels, I suggest Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and not John, because John is just a little bit more. Okay? If I was to suggest a gospel, I would suggest Matthew or Luke. Mark is great, short. I wouldn't say sweet, because Mark isn't really sweet, but it's short to the point, and it's bam, 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 action, action, action. But Matthew and Luke are great places to pick up the gospel and read. Number 4, during this time, go to Orthodox services as often as possible. Just stand there. Just listen. You may be surprised by this next part when he's talking about going to church. Do not judge other people in any way. Do not be bothered about what you do not understand. It can be very tempting in the Orthodox Church when you've never experienced it before, or you're just beginning to experience, especially because so much in our world is trying to be as simple and as accessible as possible, and you walk into an Orthodox church service, and this is not as simple and not easily as accessible as other church experiences. Would everyone agree to that? This requires some buy-in. The Orthodox church services are for the faithful. They are not advertisements for other people outside of the church. They are what the family does. It would be like you walking into Sunday dinner with everybody in the family and you're just kind of walking in. They'll be hospitable. The church is always hospitable, but there's going to be the reality that you're walking into a family that's in the middle of a dinner, right? They're going to have inside stories. They're going to have inside jokes. They're going to have lingo and jargon that you don't understand. It doesn't mean they don't want you there. It doesn't mean they don't care for you and that they're not being hospitable, but it takes time. Maybe this analogy isn't the best, but it takes time. Because the church is something that is there for the rest of your life. It's not there to just like pitch something to you, set the hook, draw you in, and then not have anything to give you after that, right? This is for the rest of your life. There are still things as a priest that, I went to seminary. I've been Orthodox for 18, 19 years now. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, right? And I have a pretty deep understanding of the Orthodox Christian faith, generally speaking. There's still services, there's still hymns that strike me and hit me and give me depth of understanding. Right? I'm sure this feast, the Vespers that we're going to sing in just a moment, there's going to be some hymns that I'm like, I don't remember that one from last time, and it's going to strike me differently. Okay? 5, during this time, do not lie about anything. Do not consciously harm anyone. Try to be kind and good to everyone you meet without exception. If possible, do some good work for others, even if just for an hour or 2 a week, as secretly as possible. Also, if possible, give away money secretly to those in need. This is called almsgiving, aka be kind. If you were here for when we did the Sermon on the Mount, this is what our Lord tells us to do. Do things without I forget which hand, it doesn't matter which hand. Whatever this hand is doing, this one shouldn't even know what it's doing because we are freely giving, right? Number 6, during this time, if you are married, if you are not married, do not engage in any sexual acts at all, of any kind, even with yourself alone. If you fail in this, put it behind you immediately with a prayer of repentance and start over. Be pure. The Orthodox Church, we bless sexual relations between those who are married, male and female. Outside of that, it is not blessed by God. That is what is the clear teaching of scriptures and the tradition of the church. 7, during this time, do not get drunk. Do not eat too much. Do not eat unhealthy foods. And try to eat and drink less than normal a couple days a week. For example, keep the fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, aka be sober. Is there anything surprising about 5, 6, or 7 at all to you? No one is like, do not eat unhealthy foods? You ever think that you would hear that in a church? Why say something like that? Why even have the advice like don't eat unhealthy foods? Yes?
Seems like Orthodoxy really takes into consideration how the body plays a role in our spiritual life and not dividing them sort of Gnostic way.
Yes. Do we do it perfectly? No, everybody messes up. But there's still the goal, there's still the aim. And I'm going to tell you, when you start fasting, because you're not used to fasting, and you start cutting out meat and you try to embrace the letter of the law with fasting, if you're trying to do that. Because I did this when I was in college. And you know what I ended up living off of in college, for most of college? Ramen noodles, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I mean, some of this is just regular fare for a college student, but like when you're fasting, like Progresso lentil soup, which is probably the best thing that I ate, right? Like you end up eating a lot of not healthy foods. So I encourage you in fasting to nowadays, I have actually asked, I don't encourage you to use AI, but AI can sometimes put together a Lenten recipe list pretty well. And it'll even know, I'll say, like Russian Orthodox fasting, and it will know. And then at the end, you know what it'll say? It'll say, ask your priest. Like, wow. I joked to a friend, we're evangelizing the bots even, right? But the reality is you have at your fingertips the ability, you're gonna have to go to different parts of the grocery store, but you have the ability to start learning a broader thing, and you need to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Those are always acceptable under the fast, right? These are good things for you. It doesn't mean that you just start eating not so great stuff, just bread, right? 3 minutes left? We'll see. It's okay. I don't have a recording set up for the Vespers because I forgot, so. During this time, sit in total silence at least 10 to 15 minutes a day, or even up to 30 minutes a day if you can, watching the thoughts that come to your mind and letting them go with the prayer, God, enlighten my mind. God, help me with this. God, help these people who come to mind. Be quiet and reach out to God. Number 9, during this time, try to speak as little as possible without irritating others. Do not try to make your opinions known or accepted in conversations unless asked. Listen to others. Be attentive to their presence and their needs. Do not argue with anyone about anything. This might be the hardest one on here. We have a tendency with religion to think, if I can just get the right arguments and I can convince other people that I'm right about X, Y, and Z, then I have found the kingdom. And I'm going to say, brother, you have not found the kingdom. You found yourself. Doesn't mean even if you're right? It doesn't mean that you got it. So be kind. Don't argue with people. You don't need to tell everybody about every opinion that you have about everything. Conspiracy or not, nobody cares. Just be quiet. It's better to be remembered as the guy who smiled and nodded their head and was kind than the one who just pontificated all the time about stuff. All right, I'm going to stop pontificating now. 10, during this time, find someone that you fully trust and share with that person your thoughts, feelings, dreams, hang-ups, compulsions, etc. in detail. Do not, however, go into detail about sexual things or about other people. Discuss in detail your family of origin and your childhood experiences, good and bad. Focus on what memories distress and sadden you and what memories bring you joy. Be accountable. What do you think about this advice? I'm glad there's some caveats in there as he's encouraging you. Part of becoming and entering into and being an Orthodox Christian is that you need to be known. One of the great epidemics that's even known by the government is that we're having a loneliness epidemic. The British government has said this years ago. So if they said it years ago, I think this was even before COVID, right? I don't know, I can't imagine what's going on now, right? Even when we come together and come regularly, we all feel this. We need to have people and be connected who actually know us, but appropriately with boundaries, right? That's why there's the caveat there. You do not need to tell everybody every little bit, right? That's between you, God, and a priest who witnesses it, who's sworn to secrecy, or otherwise they're deposed and cast out, right? 11, during this time do a checklist of possible food, drug, and sex addictions, and other addictions that you may think that you may have. Rage, gambling, shopping, I would put internet, right? If you see that you're addicted in some way, seek help and possibly enter a treatment program. We take your healthiness, because as Joe was mentioning earlier, like our Orthodox spirituality is not bifurcated, where you have your spirituality and then you can like have your life be a complete mess. You are supposed to thrive, being made in the image of God, and healthiness is a man fully alive, as St. Irenaeus says, is the glory of God, right? A man and a woman who is fully alive in the Spirit is God's glory. So if there's some idolatry in your life, which is what an addiction is, something that you are using to cope with maybe trauma or experiences that you've had in your life, then seek help. I am not trained in all these things. There are people who are trained in these things. I can refer you, or I can at least encourage you to find help. But if you are really suffering, some of these things can't just be prayed for. They need other help too. That's not that prayer is not helpful, but you sometimes need other help, okay? And I tell you that as a priest of 7 years now, I've had enough experiences. There are certain situations that you don't need an exorcism. You need somebody to help you deal with your rage against your mom or your dad or whoever hurt you, okay? This isn't just magic. All right, 12, and this will be the last thing, and then we need to end. During this time, do your work or your studies to the best of your ability, carefully, responsibly, conscientiously, and devotedly, not devoutedly. Live a day, even part of a day at a time. Focus fully on what you're doing at the given moment. You know, being Orthodox, one thing that Father Thomas Hopko would say, this is not here. We are not here for you to become a religious fanatic or to become weird. This is all so that you can become a healthy, normal human being. I know normal is kind of a word that's hard, but I think you understand what I mean, right? Well-adjusted, not in the sense that you've just like pushed it all down, but that you are learning how to find joy, to have hope, to be patient, to be kind, to have all the fruit of the Spirit. And this is why we have the life of the church. This is why we have the tools that are given to us. Does anyone have any questions before we end? Yes.
One quick question, Father. You had, if I remember correctly, you had originally said King James Version, and if that is the case, why?
No, I wouldn't say King James Version. I would suggest New King James Version. If you like the King James Version, that's fine, but we have to like which King James Version, because there's really old ones that I struggle to read. There are all sorts of different translations. The ones that I don't suggest are like the Message, because that's not really the Bible. It's a nice gloss. I think it's Eugene Peterson. It is interesting, but I would not use that as your divine scripture.
Also,
And I don't think, what's Eugene Peterson, wasn't it, the Message? Or he was involved. Like, sometimes it has a very interesting angle, but I would not use that as Holy Writ, okay? It's not even a translation, it's a gloss, yeah.
what's your sense on NIV? That's also
I don't like NIV either.
It's got some.
It has a lot of more Calvinistically inclined stuff going on in it that I'm not a big
Just
fan
like
of.
a lot of people like it, so I want to make sure that you.
Yeah, we read in the church typically New King James or RSV, and I'm not so hot on RSV. The problem is with every translation, if any of you know any other language, you can't ever fully translate stuff that well. You try to be as close as possible, but so, and we can get into some more details about Bible stuff because we could start off a very long conversation about manuscripts and all sorts of stuff, but let's end with prayer. If those who are staying for Vespers, please do stay. If you have to go, I understand it's already been a long day, but we're going to start Vespers here in just a minute. If there's anyone who wants, let me pray, we'll end, and then we'll do the Lord, now let us have this